Hi, welcome to the 14-day weather forecast. I think it's probably true to say that the cold spell, which I was discussing on my last update, came in at the lower end of expectations, and that is putting things mildly. Nonetheless, it's now history, and the important thing is how are things shaping up as we head through the next 2 weeks. Well, I'm going to start as usual by taking a look at the view across Europe and the North Atlantic. The animation runs from 18 GMT, Tuesday the 13th. And at the outset, it's an Atlantic dominated picture. Weather coming in from west or the southwest, so it's quite unsettled. Outbreaks of rain affecting all parts of the country through the first few days. Winds still coming in from west or the southwest. But then, as we head through the weekend, things do begin to change. High pressure starts building from the southwest, and that could well lead to a drier period, at least for a time, because by the end of the first week and the start of the second, what this particular computer model run shows is unsettled weather returning, a nasty area of low pressure there just to the west, tightly packed isobars indicating a very windy condition, so we may not be done with the storms just yet. Here is the air temperature sequence. Remember that this is about 1,500 meters above sea level. Blues indicate the cold air, yellows and oranges for mild or warm, greens, well, probably close to or a little bit above the average for this time of the year. And as I run this, what we see is that the blues really keep a void in the UK, and we stay under the yellows for greens for much of the period. So at least aloft, it does not look cold by any means. Values at this level often significantly above a 30-year average. What does that mean in terms of the temperatures we can expect down at the surface? Well, a few charts here to illustrate. Forecast maximums on a Valentine's Day, often associated with one of the coldest periods of the year statistically in the UK. Definitely not the case this year, at least not for most of us. Across the southern half UK, 12s, 13s, 14s Celsius, very mild indeed. It's just Scotland there where it is colder at this point. The nights don't look cold either. The minimums will be fluctuating. I'm just using this one as an average. Friday morning, single figures, but 7s or 8s. In southern and central regions, a bit higher there. In East Anglia, still double figures actually. Cooler as you head northwards. Now I think, as I say, they will be fluctuating. Frost is possible at times in the north. All in all, though, nighttime lows also would seem to be well above the average across most of the UK. In fact, there could be some very mild nights. Moving forwards, though, to Friday and looking at maximums again. So Friday afternoon now, 12s, 13s. It's still a mild or very mild picture. A little bit cold there, as you'd expect, over the higher ground in Scotland. Sunday, well, positively spring-like if cloud breaks develop and it stays dry. So central and eastern counties of England there, 14 Celsius being shown, and often the GFS can undercook maximums a little bit. So if the sun broke out through the clouds, 15, 16 could be a possibility. Almost the start of the beer garden season, and it's only mid-February. Finally, Tuesday the 20th. The unsettled weather at this point is starting to return on this computer model run, but it's still a mild picture, really, double figures in much of the country. The Mogreps G ensemble plot for London just reinforces the temperature message. Each of these lines represents the forecast from one of the runs in the ensemble, and when they're tightly packed together like this, it indicates a high degree of confidence on the given scenario, which is a mild or very mild one, and that continues through to the end of the first week. Rainfall. The aggregate charts here for days 0 to 5 from the GFS and ECM models both show significant amounts of rain in all parts of the UK, but the wettest conditions there generally, not exclusively, in the west and the northwest. Moving forwards to the 0 to 10 day aggregates, the totals have continued increasing. So even though we've got that drier period, according to the GFS at least, it is suggesting it won't last terribly long, and the unsettled theme returns. So, in more general terms, how do the deterministic models compare to each other towards the end of the first week? Here is the GFS, Tuesday the 20th of February. High pressure is bringing a more settled period to much of the UK, but there is still a risk of rain there in the far northwest. The Canadian Global, German Icon, European ECM, and finally UK Met Office Global all show a relatively similar pattern, with high pressure keeping things drier, more settled, especially across the southern half of the UK, a greater chance of rain in the north, and with the high pressure being centred to the south, it's predominantly mild or even very mild. Now, does that continue to be the case as we head through week 2? As ever, it's all about trends and probabilities at this range using the ensemble data. First up, the GEFS plot for London. Air temperatures at the 850 HPA level across the top, so approximately 1,500 metres above sea level. To start off with, all of the individual runs there, shown by the different lines, are well above the thick black line, which is a 30-year average, but there is a clear downwards trend there. The thick purple line, the ensemble mean, falls below the 30-year average, and it stays there more or less until the end of the 16-day period. But it is worth emphasising that most of the runs, whilst showing a colder picture, don't look very cold. Now, the rainfall risk across the bottom here is ongoing for quite a few spikes showing up throughout the second week. Will it be cold enough for snow? The snow roll values there show the number of runs, forecasting snow to fall on each of the given 16 days on this plot. The maximum value it can take is 33, but on this update it goes to 10. So a low chance of snow falling in southern Britain, but not completely out of the question. But the other thing to emphasise here, though, is that it shows the chance of snow falling, not necessarily accumulating. It could just be a few flakes of snow mixed into a shower or a heavy burst of rain. The 2-metre temperature data tables for London show that downward trend to a degree, but as I say, we are now reached the time of the year where averages are starting to rise once more. So the light green, which is dominating these columns, is showing forecast maximums between 6 and 10 during the day, not desperately cold by any means, although temperatures do dip away more when showers come along, if that was the scenario that we were looking at. Nighttime lows, the chance of frost increases. The blues show air frost, temperatures falling 2 or below 0 Celsius, and quite a few of the runs in the dark green category could support ground frost. But the message here is the chance of night frosts increases as we go through week 2. Daytime temperatures fall, but really not particularly cold by any stretch of the imagination. Up to Manchester, a very similar story actually, although the snow row values are somewhat higher, so a greater chance here of seeing a few flakes. The 2-metre temperature data tables, similar to London, albeit at a slightly lower level. And going up to Glasgow, it's a similar story. The very, very similar. In fact, on some recent updates, there has been quite a difference with the Glasgow plots, because the cold air has tended to remain embedded for longer periods of time in the northern half of the UK. But on this update, the general trends are very similar, although the chance of snow falling is somewhat higher than it is further south, of course. And the 2-metre temperature data tables for Glasgow reinforce the message. In this part of the UK, the averages are lower than they are in London, so there's more dark green in the columns, which is just following that pattern. Also a greater chance of frost. One other thing I just wanted to highlight is the chance of it turning very windy again at times through the second week. It's just something to keep an eye on at this range. This is the ensemble plot showing forecast wind gusts for Liverpool. It only goes out to 10 days ahead, unlike the other ones which are going forward 16. But if you look at the very end there, from the 21st of February onwards, the ensemble mean is rising, wind gusts going up to around 40 miles an hour, maybe just a little bit below the average taken across all runs. But there are a few going up to 60 or above, so there is that chance through week 2. It's maybe even towards the end of week 1, of it turning very windy, especially in the west and the north. Keep an eye on it as the time approaches. The rainfall probability charts from the ECM model, so these show the chance of 5 millimeters or more of rain falling on the first 3 days of week 2, consistent with the idea of the weather coming in from the Atlantic, wettest therefore in the west and the northwest. The same with the days 11, 12 and 13. Now I've been talking about it turning somewhat colder through week 2, but not desperately cold, and I think these charts help to illustrate why that could be the case. This is the first one up, is showing the mean surface level pressure pattern on Friday the 23rd of February using data from all of the GEFS runs, and what we see is high pressure to the southwest, low pressure close to the north, but more of a west or a northwesterly tilt to things than has been the case recently. So it's relatively cold compared to what we've seen in recent days and through much of week 1 of the forecast, but not terribly cold because we're not looking at winds here coming down from the north or the northeast, but perhaps more the polar maritime northwesterly flow, and that really suggests a high chance of snow showers over high ground in the northern half of the United Kingdom, a lot more mixed at lower levels even in the north. And the general theme is also supported by the comparable plot from the ECM model. Finally, the mean surface level pressure data table for York, so going through week 2. Low pressure probably having a lot of influence, at least through the first half of it. Towards the very end there may be something of a signal for pressure to begin rising again, but it supports the idea of quite changeable weather during this period. So, to summarise, week 1, mixed with rain in all areas, but it probably turns drier through the second half, especially in the south and east. The days are expected to be very mild, and the risk of frost is lower than average, as you would expect. Week 2, it becomes more unsettled with wet and windy spells probably affecting all regions. Temperatures dip and the chance of frost increases during quieter interludes. There could be some snow around, mostly over high ground in the north. So there we have it. Very mild through week 1, temperatures trending downwards through week 2, the chance of snow increasing, particularly over high ground in the north, perhaps also to low levels in the north, but we'll see as the time approaches. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. As ever, if you did, then please consider hitting the like button below and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. And do stay up to date with the day-to-day weather developments by checking out the TheWeatherOutlook.com website. Thanks very much now. Bye.